Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I think that we are living in such interesting and fun times because at this point, we can develop most things, and it's really a question of how much can we imagine and what can we build in order to make the world a better place. And I'll tell you what, we have found two incredible co-founders and guests to bring on in today's episode who are constantly building things that are indeed making the world a better place. I love all the different use cases that they've found to use software and coding and technology to positively impact various markets that we're going to hear a lot about today. So let me introduce you to today's guests. Their names are Victoria Balkissoon and Matt Proetsch, and together they are the co-founders of NightShift Codes, which is a software engineering company based in Orlando, Florida that began with a local-first approach, helping small and mid-sized businesses streamline their workflows with custom-built software and strengthen their online presence. Today, they're expanding beyond client projects into building their own SaaS tools and educational products, including a coding coloring book for kids that's going to be released soon. And I'll tell you what, as an uncle, my niece and nephew are 7 years old, I love seeing entrepreneurs that are positively impacting today's youth. Their mission is to develop practical software solutions that empower creatives and entrepreneurs alike, and just having had the chance to interact with them a little bit off the air, they're fellow Florida-based entrepreneurs. I know that you're going to love their energy and their insights, so I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Victoria Balkissoon and Matt Proetsch. All right, Matt, Victoria, we are so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, thanks so much, Brian. I'm glad to be here.
Heck yes. Anytime we have co-founders on, that's always the first test, is when I welcome you guys to the show. Who's going to jump in first? And then you guys nailed the first test. So let's dive straight into taking us beyond the bio. I teased a little bit about what you guys do together, but I love your backgrounds. I love everything that led up to NightShift Codes. So take us beyond the bio. Who's Matt? Who's Victoria? How'd you guys start doing all these cool things?
Sure, I'll start. So my background, sort of just hacking things together from a computer science point, like programming point of view. So like my favorite thing to do is just tackle a problem, jump right in, sort of with no knowledge of how that piece of the world works, and then sort of like build that up. I think that's a really fun thing to do. Other things that I enjoy are like using technologies in ways other than that which like they were designed for. So yeah, that's anything that any excuse I can use to like get my hands dirty and learn something new about a piece of technology or the way that the world works. That stuff really inspires me.
Yeah, on the other hand, I like the creative aspect of coding. So primarily a front-end developer, like the user experience, user interfaces. As kind of cliche as being a girl, I love fashion. So it was kind of the perfect fitting when I was able to figure out like, hey, if I go into this side of things, it's like bringing to life something that's so beautiful and making your own masterpiece. It's like, creating an outfit basically for the code. And so, I like to do stuff like that. And I'm also on the flip side with like, the technological point of things of being able to solve challenging problems and complex problems. So I enjoy them both. It's exciting.
Yeah, I love that overview, especially because I'm going to invite you guys to go a little bit deeper there because I want to humble brag about how cool your professional backgrounds are. You both had careers in the United States Navy. You've combined forces in different ways. You both bring such different things to the table. Talk to us about that recognition of, holy cow, we both have these different things. Let's combine it into a software engineering company. What did that formation look like?
So we actually met working at the Navy, and we have several projects together, and we kind of just figured out that we worked well together. He has his strengths and I have my strengths, and we put our cards together and we did really well. And it was funny because when COVID hit and we had the capability to like the flexibility in our timing, we really harped on, being able to use the time to work in the nighttime. And then our coworkers started saying that we were the night shift. So then when it came to the point we were like, well, we're pretty good at this, we enjoy it, and we want to solve different problems beyond what we do in our day job. It was kind of easy to figure out, we were good fit to work with each other, good fit to start a company. And then we got the inspiration from our coworkers saying, hey, we're the night shift, so we got NightShift Codes.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it started. So a lot of what I did. So we're civilians, not like in the Navy, but just sort of scientists. And we do a lot like sort of internal tool development and stuff. And so we kind of just got to talking, and we were like, hey, like we seem to be pretty good at this. We have complementary strengths. She's definitely more on the front end. I'm usually stick to the back end because the interfaces that I make tend to look like, glorified spreadsheets. She excuse me about that. But, so she makes them look good. Together we work to make them functional. And, we just kind of got to talking, like it would be really cool to do, bring this kind of capability in terms of, managing back-end business systems and marketing strategies and, just website development. Anything that a local sort of small business market kind of would need in order to get started off.
Matt, I want to build onto that point there because that's such an important thing that I'm convinced is one of your biggest value adds. And I'm sure that a lot of your clients recognize this in the combination of both of your sets of skills is the fact that software engineers, you have the powers to build so many different things, to bring things to life. But Matt, that point that you just made there about the fact that it enhances businesses marketing. You guys together have such a deep understanding of not just software and not just building or writing lines of code to build something, but actually the tangible business impacts there. Talk to us about that go-to-market strategy as far as what your services looked like there, because you already know I'm taking this conversation in the future towards how you guys are transitioning and using those powers in other ways, but you've got to talk to us about that client-facing side of your business.
Yeah, the whole thing right now is client-facing. So one of the services that we offer is what we call Business in a Box, which is pretty much everything that, like, if you're retail or restaurant or something like that, it's everything that you need to have a web presence. So like your website, your email, your social media, any other services. We can talk like add-ons, like app development and stuff like that. But yeah, it's everything that you need to establish a virtual presence and have a market-facing footprint. So as we go through some of that. We've done that for a couple different verticals: wholesale, retail, restaurant. But that's.
And I was going to say, from the client interactions and the marketing side of things, it's kind of interesting because when we're developing this stuff and they come to us with what they already have as their puzzle pieces, and but they're trying to expand it onto the web or whatever other technological piece that we're building for them, it's kind of fun because we're able to it's a clean canvas. Even though they have their original marketing, we're allowed to they allow us to expand that and create like their own marketing and create whatever visuals and everything like that we want to put in their technology. We get full reign with that most of the time, which is really fun. So it's a really interesting piece that we don't usually get with typical just writing code all the time.
Yeah, Victoria, you pretty much just alluded to the way that I like to work with outside people, because if someone's an expert in something, I don't want to limit their thinking. If I work with a graphic designer, please, I want them to take control of all of that stuff. If I work with a developer, please, I want you to take care of all of that stuff because you know so much better than I do. And that lends me to the next question, which is how often when you walk into new projects, when you're talking to even prospective clients, how much of it is a case of they don't know what they don't know? I would imagine if I sat down with you guys, I could probably tell you about a lot of dreams that I have. I could probably tell you about a lot of things that I wish worked better, but what does that partnership and collaboration look like between you guys with your prospective clients or existing clients, figuring out, hey, this is possible, we can bring this to life? How do they even expose those gaps as to what you can fix in their businesses?
It's a lot of back and forth with them, a lot of initial conversations we have. It's actually very common that we see they have a vision, they have, but they really have the plan and they're not really sure what the puzzle pieces are, but we're there to, talk with them through it. And it's a lot of back and forth, a lot of deep conversations there. And we're able to uncover some things. And that's a nice thing about it. We firmly believe that, having those conversations can illuminate, we'll come up with ideas, they'll come up with ideas. It's sometimes just talking through it with them. So it's kind of like talking with a friend. When we first start with them, we just kind of tell us what you think, what your visions are, what you hope to get out of it, and then we go back and forth, which is pretty nice to illuminate portions that they're not even thinking about, and that helps us get a full vision and view of what we want to build for them.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for us to learn about their particular subject area, and for them to learn from us a little bit about what ways that they can use technology to help them solve specific business problems. So it's always sort of those first initial meetings are almost always sort of like bi-directional learning, pretty the more that we're willing to learn and the more that they're willing to learn, the better we're going to work together. So that's, we always try to turn that into sort of like a shared learning opportunity.
Yeah, Matt, I love that term, bi-directional learning. I think that when people think about, what do sales conversations look like? They shouldn't be salesy. They should be bi-directional learning, because we're both trying to figure out, is this the right match for me on both sides? I think that that's such a really strong point to emphasize. When I think about the context of what most people do, I obviously interview entrepreneurs for a living, and I hear from entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs all over the world that are in our audience. You guys, I must confess that most people force themselves into a box and they Frankenstein their way to a different tech stack instead of even considering the custom development route. Is that something that you bump up against? Is it something that you see a lot in the marketplace, especially with local businesses?
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes like people will come to us with solutions or with questions or problems. And if there's like, if I know of an existing tool in the marketplace that's going to serve their needs better, I usually I'll tell them about it, because there's, we could, make something that looks like that for, but if there's an existing tool that I'm happy with, I'm not going to recommend something that I think is not going to meet their needs or that isn't, up to snuff. In that case, that's an opportunity. But yeah, if there's, I have no problem with like recommending other, because primarily if that tool's out there, like, of course they're going to see it eventually. So, eventually our solution is going to get compared to that. So, we'll be competing. And if that's not the direction that we wanted to devote our resources, then it wouldn't make as much sense for us to pursue that, even as like a white label thing. But like I said, if the opportunity is out there and the tool is not meeting the need or the tool does not work well, then there's an opportunity.
Yeah, and if there's any opportunity for us to like take even existing tools and extend their capabilities to make it make sense for what the customer needs, we also kind of like seize that so that we'd learn more even about the tools that are available out there and then how we can utilize it in different ways.
Yeah, Victoria, that's a point. I think it's super important for all of us to acknowledge that is you guys aren't walking into businesses and just replacing their tech stacks. It really is understanding their business and making sure that their business can thrive. And Matt, you made such an important point that I wish every vendor would make, in the sense that you don't care. You're solution agnostic. If your solution makes sense for them, of course, it's something that you guys would love to work with them on the opportunity for. But give us some of those use cases again, because a lot of people probably haven't worked with an software engineering companies such as yourselves. What are different use cases? Are there certain softwares that you think to yourself, that was such a really fun project to be a part of? I'd love to hear some of those real life insights.
So I would say, we've been through a few interesting use cases so far. I would say, I guess for like a local company that we had, they were struggling with inventory. It was manual actually with how they were keeping track of it. And we went and got introduction was a walk through their warehouse, thousands of pieces of their inventory. And it was like, well, how are you keeping track? And they're like, it's all manual. And so it was nice of like, can you create something that would help us keep track? It would be very modern. It would scale to be, have a website accompanying with it. So we were able to go in and make, we got the nicety of both things, make a website for them that is customer facing, looks really pretty, but also create a custom web application for them that would handle their inventory, allow them to keep track of everything, and kind of just modernizes this local business. And that was really exciting to go back now. It's been about a year since we've done that, and to see like the evolution of how their business has thrived since then, and how much easier their employees have it too in terms of manual work.
Yeah, and I've got to bring this into the conversation because so many people are talking about it. Every listener, every guest, we always end up talking about AI in some sort of way. How's AI shaping, reshaping, improving? I don't know which verbs to use there. How's AI changing the world of what you guys are working on?
I would say it's enhancing. It's improving it for the most part, even as a developer.
Yeah, it's hugely empowering. So we use it all over the place. We use it in our graphic design process. We use it in our mock-ups. We use it. We ship production code that's partially written by AI. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing more and more is people actually come to us with like vibe-coded apps or vibe-coded websites or vibe-coded back-end business systems or whatever. And so they're like, hey, this, I worked with ChatGPT to like get this thing. It kind of works, but like, it's costing me $5,000 a month on AWS, or it's, rejecting my users' login attempts half the time, or like something's going terribly wrong. And so they found us one way or another. And so we'll work with them to like kind of bring that up to speed technically. And of course, we're going to use AI partially to do it because tools like, Claude Code, Cursor, even ChatGPT, it's good to use kind of a variety of models because they're all going to have different opinions on how to solve things. So that's always fun. But yeah, we use the tools hugely in development. It's nice to see that they're empowering people, because what that lets us do is kind of cut out the front half of a lot of those engagements. Like they've kind of already gone through a few iterations just with the tools that AI enables them to use. So they've already got like a working prototype, so they're kind of working through the problem in their head already of like, okay, what can technology do for me? And they're looking for us to take it that extra mile.
Yeah. And yeah, from a design perspective and a marketing perspective, it gives it helps us a lot, that perspective. Like there's only so many different ways your brain will think of different designs. Eventually they start kind of all looking the same. So it's with AI, it kind of introduces new aspects of it and you're like, oh, that looks good. So it's really great.
Yeah, it seems to me like you both have such a healthy mindset towards AI. I keep hearing, and obviously I hear a lot of business chatter, and I'm sure you guys do too, about AI replacing jobs. And it's such a fear-based coverage of AI, especially in the media. But within entrepreneurial circles, I keep running into this healthier mindset. Matt, I feel like it's such a perfect platform for you to talk about vibe coding, because people think it replaces developers. As someone who has played around with Replit for a few hours, it quickly made me realize developers aren't going anywhere. I'd love for you to introduce listeners to what vibe coding is if they're not as familiar with it, and then what role does it play? Because it actually sounds like even all the broken things that I probably built can be salvaged and can be helpful in adding to a project that one day will work properly.
Yeah, so vibe coding is it's basically an instance of an LLM that you have integrated with your existing developer environment. So software developers, we like to configure things like VS Code, or I guess VS Code is really the big one right now, but just a software, local program running on your computer that has all your source code files. So typical projects will have like a few hundred or a few thousand source code files, together with like all the images and audio files and videos and whatever else you need for your web app. And that LLM will have direct access to all of those files. So it can read, it can make changes, and you say, hey, can you move the position of this button from here to here? Or like, can you store an attribute of my user in my database or something like that? And it'll modify those source code files directly in your IDE. And you can watch it as it's working. It goes through task by task. So you'll start with a request, and it'll say like, okay, I'm going to read this file, and then I'm going to update my to-do list, and then I'm going to write changes to maybe the same file or a different file. And it just goes through sequentially. It's almost like watching it talk to itself, but instead of it being on both sides of the conversation, it's basically like LLM and then, some code change, and then it can actually start your application and test it out. So it'll see like, okay, did that have the desired effect? Yes or no? If yes, great, mission accomplished. And it'll wait for you to give it another task. But if it didn't work, then it just kind of goes back and forth. And then eventually your code base will be either changed a little bit in a good case, or it'll be changed a lot. And sort of the bigger change that you ask it for, the lower probability that it's going to do exactly what you wanted. So for now, software developer jobs are still, I think, probably safe for the time being. We'll see. These models get better and better all the time, but ultimately, like there's a certain, I'll say, problem complexity or task duration threshold above which LLMs are not going to be able to help you out. Now, you can still use them. Sorry, I'm going on a little long, but you can still use them like to sketch out like, hey, if I wanted to make this change in my application, how would you recommend I go about doing that? And that's one of my favorite questions to ask LLMs, because they'll give you, if it's integrated with your development environment, then it'll give you like sort of a skeleton, like a plan to follow. Like, oh, well, see how you're doing this and this and this. And that's super useful if we're working with a company that has an existing code base and it's huge and we don't yet understand it. We can sort of defer to the LLM because it's seen more code than I'm ever going to see in my entire life, and it has sort of an innate understanding of the structure, and it can move. It's probably going to give me at least the patterns that I need to be on the lookout for. as I try to achieve something in that code base.
Yeah, Matt, I really appreciate that overview. I'm going to pick on two words that you snuck into that answer, and that is for now. Obviously, the world is changing at such a quick pace and in so many different industries. And that's why I don't necessarily want to talk about the future of AI right now, because I feel like there's so many different things that none of us can predict. But what I can predict, because you guys have teased it my way, is the fact that NightShift Codes, you guys are recognizing that, hey, we want to build other things in this world as well, not just those client-facing projects, but what I teased at the very top of today's episode, building out your own SaaS tools and educational products, even if they're not necessarily software tools, such as a coding coloring book for kids. You guys have to talk to us about that evolution of your business.
Yeah. I guess I'll take that one. So yeah, it's been exciting because we've done a lot of client work. We notice it's a lot of work to go back and forth, a lot with that. And we have some other ideas, that we're like, well, we don't really get to fit in the time, but we're thinking, now's the time for us to do that. So we want to start conquering that. Also the fact that I have a lot of nieces and nephews as well. So they're always asking about what are you doing? And their parents are always like, share with them. So they'll start understanding. So it's kind of fun to create something like that. We initially started kind of getting in the educational space on Medium and writing about our thoughts there and what we know and the knowledge and sharing back as we were growing in our field, especially when I was in college. I turned to Medium and Reddit and all those other places, Substack. I guess Substack wasn't really a thing when I was in college, but you wanted to read what other people knew and share their knowledge with them. And so we initially started doing that. And then the idea of if we could share it with adults, and why not share it with kids? I've seen coding books for babies that they have that teaches them, if else statements and things like that. So we wanted to get in that space, something a little more interactive, but still would teach property, different properties and things like that you would learn in coding. And so that's how we got into that.
Yeah, I love that backstory. Victoria, so good to know that you are also super inspired by your nieces and nephews. There's nothing like seeing the way that a child's mind expands and how much they imagine and how much of a positive influence we can be in the way that they think and their natural curiosities and passions. I wish these things existed when I was young. I remember I was in college when I found Codecademy, and it was super basic back then. I hope it's still around today, but I remember back then it was like, hey, let's, that classic, let's use PHP to output the message hello world. And it was so cool to see these things come to light from just touching the keyboard. So the younger people get into that, the cooler it is. And kudos to you guys for recognizing that opportunity in the marketplace. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about you guys as co-founders, because it's always fun for me to interact with co-founders who have visions not only of what it is that they do today, but where it is that they want to go tomorrow. You're talking about some of those evolutions in your business model. What does that co-founder time look like? Are you two carving out executive time together? Are you asking strategic questions weekly, monthly, quarterly? How are you making those decisions together? I'd love some of those behind the scenes insights.
So probably not structured so much as we ought to be. A lot of it's kind of I'll call Vic and hey, I have this bug. Do you see this bug? And she's like, yeah, I see that bug. I'm like, I should fix that. And then she's like, hey, we should build this other thing.
That's how most of our days.
So a lot of it's kind of just off the cuff. It's right now, it's kind of unofficial, I guess, the strategic planning and vision. I think the goal, generally speaking, the goal is, after a couple of successful SaaS products or one successful SaaS product, I guess, then we have, strategic planning and a lot more structure around that particular effort. So right now I kind of think the plan is for that to come into place after that product gets shipped.
Yeah. Yeah, right now we don't really have this organized fashion. It's mostly just phone calls here or there. We talk to each other a lot during the day. But it's kind of nice because I feel like because we're not structured, we don't hold our ideas to like the next time we need to talk. And we also, we're always free flowing. So it's back and forth conversation, and that like illuminates a lot of the ideas, or we'll be talking about one feature or a bug that we've seen, and like, hey, did you think about, maybe we could do this instead. So I kind of like that we don't really have the structure right now. I think that will probably definitely come along in the end, in the long run, because it'll be necessary, but it's pretty free flowing right now, which is nice.
Yeah, I love that. Victoria, you said free flowing. As an entrepreneur, and I think a lot of us are in the same boat, free flowing is a structure. I'm totally on board there. A lot of us left our 9-to-5 careers so that we can have that more free flowing structure. So I love the way that you called that out. Matt, a few times that you've been talking about the projects that you work on, and whether that means finding a bug and calling Victoria, and the two of you are bouncing that idea off of, it makes my brain want to know, what do these timelines look like? Everyone hears some horror stories about development, and if you hire a web developer to create something custom, how much over budget it goes and over timeline. Can you take us behind the scenes? Obviously, you guys, something that you're very intentional about is how you manage those client expectations. What does that timeline typically look like, knowing that there's no one size fits all?
Okay, so so with the timelines element, there's plenty of times where, we underestimate how long something is going to take. And then, it's realizing when we've carved out.
We're both guilty of that.
Yeah, we've carved out 10 hours and we're hitting hour 8 and we're like, oh, we still have like half of it to do. This is not great. So that's why we try to be as transparent as we can be with our customers. It's very hard to kind of, it's hard to estimate properly in this field, unfortunately. And so that is something we do come up with. And, we try to be as transparent with our customers in the beginning, letting them, if we need some wiggle room, that's not your fault. It's our fault. So we try to set expectations at the beginning when we start features, and try not to, make the list way too long where we can't accomplish it in the set amount of time, and be early on, be as transparent with them, saying, hey, we can't accomplish this, or this is what we can't accomplish. So it's more the communication aspect that makes it easier to kind of navigate the time frame issues. But
yeah, transparency goes a long way. I'll say at first my estimates were very, we'll call them optimistic, in terms of like timelines. And lately I've tried to pivot that to under-promising and over-delivering. In that way, when Claude Code hits it out of the park and we get it right the first time, we can say, hey, this was not slated for delivery for another week, but like it's ready to go. So, let's ship it and move on.
Yeah, I love the fact, and I really appreciate it that you both called out that communication is really the answer there, because there is no reliable way to predict these things, whether it's coding, whether it's a marketing campaign, no matter what it is. I think that client communication is such an important and crucial aspect of managing expectations as business owners, as entrepreneurs. So kudos to you both for going there in that answer. And I'm really excited for how you both answer this last question, because it's super broad. I ask it at the end of every episode, and normally we get one piece of advice, but since we've got co-founders here, we're going to get 2 pieces of advice, one from each of you. And that question, of course, is what's your best piece of advice for listeners? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and also knowing that you two are one of us, you are fellow entrepreneurs yourselves. What's that piece of advice that you want to leave them with? I'll let you two decide who's going first, because it's not easy to go second in this one.
Let's go. Okay. Yeah. I would say take risks, take the plunges. When we were first thinking about starting NightShift, we talked about it for a very long time. We had these logo ideas and things like that, but we never actually formed the company. We never actually started to try and go get clients. And when we finally did, it was like a bright new world opening of possibilities. And so you're in charge of your possibilities, you have your options, and that first step is taking the risk and taking the plunge. And whether or not you want to start a business, or you're in the business world and you have this opportunity that you're unsure about, we've tried different opportunities and different fields to go into as developers, and it's opened many doors for us. So I would say take the risk. I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. What she said also, maybe I would add, be open to feedback, be open to, changing what you're working on and prioritizing based on what works and what you enjoy doing and what makes money and, what you find success doing. So, it's hard because you really have to, if you get a hold of a good idea, like you have to relentlessly execute and bring it to life. And that involves sacrifices, and sometimes it's pleasant, sometimes not so much. But then, sometimes if it just doesn't work out, you still gotta be able to cut your losses and move on to the next thing, so yeah, it's tough to figure out where that balance is, but you gotta keep trying to learn as much as you can to find that right balance.
Boom. I love those pieces of advice. That's the real stuff. Honestly, as entrepreneurs, we could talk about marketing, we could talk about software development, we could talk about all these business aspects, but you both touched on the very real human aspect of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I'm so appreciative of all of your insights here today. And I will say, as a fellow night owl, it sounds like you both fully embrace the night owl status. I love your brand. I love the way that your business shows up in the world. Your messaging, even your tagline, the coding starts when the moon rises. I'm really excited for listeners to check out your work. So drop those links on us for listeners who want to find out about all the cool things that you're up to, as well as all the cool things that are coming in the future. Where the heck can we tune in to all those cool things?
Yeah, so we have our website, which is nightshift.codes. And you can also follow us on Instagram at nightshift.codes as well. And yeah, we'll be sharing some cool stuff.
Listeners, you already know we're dropping all of those links down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. We're also linking to Matt and Victoria's personal LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out and continue the conversation, if you've always had that idea in your head and you've thought, I need a developer, or dare I say, you've fired up Replit or Cursor yourself and you've totally botched a project and you want their eyes on it to help you make sense of it and bring it to reality, don't be shy in reaching out to them. If you're on the go, don't worry, click through from the show notes. We're dropping all those links. Otherwise, Matt, Victoria, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.